Quello male di no, questo.
addition to these three properties, there are additional security properties, like for example, authentication, which means it creates or where or an action that then trust person, we talk about trust person, trust then there is also so that and then also important thing to know when talking about security itself is so as a financial system, always compared to other so in terms of risk, there is also risk of trying to find credit cards. So this is also then finally, what so 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 now we come to the And the second find the case because an effectively tries to find so then means the right based on the cost of or other things then the next form of which essentially means not to think about because all thought that uh, and provide an additional layer of or and brands algorithm and high implementation and hope that will make the product secure, but the product was reverse engineered and the algorithm had major design flaws that were found afterward, so it was easy to break. Then the next principle is called economy of mechanism, which means the security mechanisms should be as simple as possible. So there also a real world analog here is which applies in the same way for security features. Because fewer functionality also means fewer things can go wrong. So hacker, for example, has fewer things he can exploit. And this also means you shouldn't add unnecessary security functionality. So just adding everything that may be needed at some point in the future to a system also from a security point of view doesn't really make sense. The other advantage you gain by following this principle is that it doesn't only reduce errors in implementation, but also then later when the system is configured and used, it's easier to handle it and errors are less. Also examples here are again different operating systems that use microkernel architectures that try to have the functionality of microarchitectures as possible. And the negative example here, from my point of view, would be typical security appliances that are quite common nowadays, where you have everything in one box. Of course, it's easy and probably also cheap from a commercial point of view. But the other side is you have quite big attack surface on those devices. Security. Then we have the principle of compound implementation, which means should be separated into single compartments so that when an attack happens or a security breach happens, it's contained within those compartments or a single compartment. It doesn't affect the whole system. Lead to the whole system compromise. Essentially, this also means it contains the effect of successful attacks, so it reduces the message. Examples here would be classical network segmentation, so try to keep the attackers in one segment, have give you enough time to detect them. Another example is virtualization, so trying to have separate zones within the system that can also be used for security purposes, like this example. And again, here an example, a negative example is if you switch or the card case where the certification authority is breached, they had their public CA, the government CA, the same security zone. Even though only the public CA was breached, since there were no walls between the two systems, they also had to take down the government CA. Then another principle I call detect or prevent. So you have to admit that no security system is perfect. If you cannot prevent successful attacks, you should at least detect them. You should have the chance to react to them. So when designing a system, it's important to already put in some features for tracing or looking at possible to trace the activities of actors in the system, so that you can correlate them also with the actors and make it possible to see what's going on. The effect that this has also deterrence. So, in the real world, if you see security cameras, for example, deters at least. So there are different gradients here. So the first one is detection only, which is important, for example, for forensics after the fact. So when you have an attack and you're doing forensics analysis, it's important to have measures in place for detecting what was going on. But then you have the deterrence, as I said before, and also the next step would be detecting the cover. Detecting attack will be possible for the system to minimize the impact of the successful attack. Examples here for the different phases would be, for example, antivirus or IPS systems, which is basically attack. Or interesting example from my point of view, always the credit card industry here. So the credit cards are very simple to use. They have very little security effect from a technical point of view. But the system, overall system works because the credit card industry uses a sophisticated mechanism of analyzing and detecting malicious transactions so that they can keep the fault rate or the incident rate of transactions down to a level where it is possible for the whole system so even though there are attacks with this analysis system in the background, the attacks are kept to a level where all the participants can be seen. And also the same principles are applied in other systems like for example, double entry accounting that's the usual system, especially also And then we have the principle of secure defaults. So when designing a system, the secure setting should be the default. Less secure systems should be activated deliberately by the user. So that's the same principle with checklists and whitelists. For example, access control mechanism for firewalls should work with this principle. So by default, all access should be denied or all ports should be blocked, and it's also operating systems to the principle when you look back in history. At some point, the operating systems try to ship all switches that they have enabled, but when attacks occurred, they switched back to a mode, or they switched to a mode where currently most operating systems ship only with the basic system services enabled, and you have to maintain each one. Then we have the principle of separation of duties. So the decisions that affect security should be based on a single condition, which means more checks, but also more chances that any misuse or security breach can be detected. This is an important trade-off of security versus availability, because if you have, for example, a situation like here where it takes 2 keys to launch the site, that means also 2 keys have to be available, otherwise the system cannot be launched. So the trade-off that we have here for us effect authentication when you want to authenticate the streams, you perform an authentication. And then we have the principle of least common mechanism, which means different systems should not depend on the same security system, because you have the problem of information transfer via dollar checks. The assumptions that one system makes about security systems may be wrong in another case. Examples here are single sign-on systems. You have to be aware that most systems that rely on these mechanisms also rely on security properties. And also, authentication cloud services like Facebook that are common in more and more applications have this problem. So there was a Facebook downtime some time ago, which also meant not only access Facebook, but also access any other service that you use Facebook authentication. An interesting example for problems this could lead to is the Apple iCloud Amazon hack back in 2012. So it was published here by a journalist, and he described how his iPhone and Apple and Amazon accounts were taken over. So it worked like this. He had an iCloud account where he checked for his iPhone services, like backup for his Apple devices, and this was protected by a password. So the password could be reset, of course. The user forgets the password, you should also reset it. And the mechanism, at least back then, was that you can reset the password via Apple support. And for this, you would need the invoice address of the account and the last 4 digits of your credit card. So how do you get this information? In this case, what the hacker did was he called Amazon, thinking or suspecting that the user would also not only have an Apple account but also an Amazon account, and said he would like to add a new credit card to the account. So determining the account name for the user shouldn't be too hard usually, because by the name and probably some other information you can guess it. And also the email address is can be found out relatively easily, and also the invoice address will typically be the home address. So if you do some background research about a person, it should be easy to find out this information. So with that, you can add a new credit card and then call Amazon support again and tell them you have lost your email account. So you would like to add a new email account, and again you need the account name, the invoice address, and the credit card number. Since you added the credit card number before, you also have this information here. So with that new email, you can log into the Amazon account via the password reset mechanism and access the last orders from this Amazon account, which would reveal the credit cards that were used to pay these last orders, but not a full credit card number, but only the last four digits. That's exactly the information that is needed to reset the password on an Apple iPhone. It was changed now, but back then it was the only information needed to reset the password in iCloud account. And with that, so come to the next principle, security by design, which is called security access, which means every access to a system has to be checked for security properties. Not only the first access or the front access or the user access, but every access, because otherwise it would be easy to find bypasses. Typical examples in real-world systems you find is developer access, account or developer credentials, or some performance optimizations that are made afterwards that bypass the system calls for performance reasons, but also open up new applications. Examples for implementing computer-mediated access are examples of web application firewalls. So the next principle is called fail secure. It means in the event of an error, the system should go to a secure state, not to the failure state. Typical examples you can find is of the code that don't obey these mechanisms are shown here, for example. So you call the function and here is the return mechanism, and only if you find the specific return mechanism, you fail the security check in all other cases, the security check is engaged, which also would mean if the function returns any other way to the next. So this is not always easy to implement. For example, in a way, it's easy to bring the system to a secure state by just stopping it. But on an airplane, that might be the way. Then we have the principle of psychological acceptability, which means security systems should be hard to use. Because if they are hard to use, people will find a way around it. For example, the user interface for security has to be secure. Otherwise, and also in general, security mechanisms should not penalize users who try to obey the rules. So the secure type of use security systems is a natural way, and the unsecure type should be also examples. Here also typical password length requirements. So if you have complexity and lifecycle requirements that make it hard for a user to remember new passwords, they would use another mechanism, for example, write down the password. Then an important thing to use or to employ when designing security mechanisms is security economics, which means a perfect security system typically is not necessary when you design any system, because it's most of the times also not feasible or another code. Trap you can go into if you try to do this is to from focus on one specific area, which means another area has security problems. You have to be also here there are no security systems on the degree and so this brings us back to the beginning. It's all about risk. You have to do a risk analysis and try to find the right balance. Then finally, when all your good intended security measures fail, the question is what happens after an attack when an attacker manages to break your security systems. It's important that the system was designed from the beginning to be resilient, which means it has to stay as after successful. Examples, one of the ones example that I can put here is to look into digital rights management. However, you think about digital rights management from a technical point of view, the media industry used DRM on DVDs to protect the content, and the first system on DVDs was broken after just the first single player was reverse engineered because he was established to the system. So they learned, of course, And newer systems work better. For example, the advanced access control systems, which is based, has the possibility to update blacklist keys, even though you don't need them. So we have the systems that makes it possible. So whenever a single layer is broken or a key is broken, it can be blocked, and the system itself can survive. And last but not least, when everything else fails, attacker resorts to social engineering, because usually it's all about reaching a goal, not breaking the system. So that's also important to keep in mind when designing security of the system. If the technical hurdles get high, at least an intelligent attacker tries to attack the people. There are also reports that show this. For example, the Microsoft report in 2011, and statistics that show nearly half of all malware infections involve some kind of user interaction. So the user has to click a button and execute something. So to sum up, security always has a price. You always have a trade-off between security and some other property, like, for example, convenience, functionality, performance, or any other thing. The important thing here is in every security design, the right balance between security and just one final slide for the right balance. So this is a real article I found. So if you want to really have a security system, just use 30,000 characters and you don't really explain your 18,000 last. So that's it from my side. Enjoyed it. Another little thing here is also some literature that's going to detail into some security. Oh, it's Windows 2000. I don't know if you have this. For I don't know. I haven't verified it. I just found the knowledge without it. counter the resistant mobile for Android. I'm working for Ecos software security GmbH since 2014 with the end of development and my specialty in analyzing and identifying attacks. It was developing analysis tools and the incidents, which are the one I'm going to talk with. I have come forward because we work on the bank controls that manage to hit one of our clients. Unfortunately, we weren't prepared for such attack in 2014. So there were a couple of minor hiccups such as blocking the smartphone. I was going to details how the malware infected the target phone, as well as how we managed to unlock the phone and remove the malicious application. So, give you more details, rundown of the contents of the back presentation. First off, we'll start with the units and details, such as the initial analysis of the app, and then the details of the indicating files, mobile phones, for applications. And I also talk about first encounter with one error. I will be talking about test reward. Uh, we use technical analysis to analyze this malware and find out how it works. We analyzed its crystal keys, as well as how it actually locks the phone, which components does it use to lock the phone, and then lastly we'll move to how this malware was cracked and how the uninstalled tools were generated using the code of the malware itself, um, how it was actually removed from the device. And lastly, I'll talk about some of the lessons that I learned during the analysis. So first of all, since this incident mentioned Friday afternoon, where we normally don't work that much, but this time we had a more error to deal with. We received a compromised mobile device which had a bank control knowledge. It appears that it was infected through a secret component, the original instruments of the mobile device where the user may install it himself. Uh, we already knew that there was a suspicious part component involved, so we plugged in the device, target computer, and ran ADE override the enable, and the device was fortunately not booted. There were no suspicious icons to look at. Unknown source were enabled, which is an indication that the user somehow installed or maybe a single software that necessarily The ad manager listed a suspicious ad. This was the system which we tried to show you. The smartphone was not going to be for some information, and we knew that the source in the background that ran. So we can coverage and download it again on the phone onto our PCs and run the scan around. We found an infected APK from processor in my flash one. Now this suspect case was being detected by virus of the bushes. And the name of this open was the banker and the support. The package name was there was one service that we want to back on the industry office. So by the way, we started the phone. There were two receivers. One of them was the SMS receiver responsible for gathering the SMS messages and routing them to the service that was used in the system to the attacker. There was one module for handling admin rights, which was the module admin receiver, and one activity which was viewable by the user. This was the activation activity. Now, we took a look at the content of the APK. Inside this, we found an SQLite database called OWASP EEE. This database was actually whatever it was installed in one time. It also was quite interesting missions, which somewhat new and somewhat not. Most of the missions that are interesting are highlighted in purple, like for example, send SMS, SMS receive, and SMS, which are responsible for communicating with users. The other missions were used weren't implemented. On this video, I'm going to show you how the application create. So what we see here is the system overview. Inside there you see the our system and one with a very small file. And here you see look at the security system of the smartphone. Then you see the certificate that already received the administrator right. We tried to deactivate it. What happened here is actually the mobile was already locked. And there was a password lock on the phone created for my authentication. So we realized this is probably a malware. So we should try and get the source code. Maybe we'll find out something with the unlocking the phone again. So first off, we want to find out how actually the device was locked, because normally we weren't sure if it was actually possible to lock the device or automatically. As it turned out, the device admin was used to lock this phone. It wasn't that there was a module which generate a response code. This response code is using a function called the input bits, and it usually contains some string. If you move your strings to the string and just use the system device policy to simply reset this password and use this string generated code as a password for the string. This will be reset function. And by the way, now I want to so we start analyzing the capability of this malware. We found out that we have used the info function, which in the OWASP encryption protocol is used based on cipher and 64 bits and whatnot. The cipher was initialized using the response which we also want to find out how it actually generates this number. So we will look at the output and we found out that the activation tool didn't use any kind of randomization. Every single number had its own pair, and it generated the activation code was actually translated into the response to it. So the only probable was here that we contained a region, and there was no chance of finding out since we had also one. We couldn't have access any of the data. So we had to dive deeper into our tools. We formulated a couple of questions about the source. The first question was, how was the device eliminated on the device? Which function was responsible for this? Also, the next question was, is it possible to get the response code somehow and log off the device? If not, is it possible to force the somehow? Was there communication between the master and the infected phone? So, there is the communication situation. The using was the smartphone infected and what would actually happen if we really wanted to remove the malware? It wouldn't be possible that the malware would somehow just come back to the infected phone once again. And it's there maybe another term. If we don't want one phone, so we get it out. So first, the answer to the first question was not possible. All it was actually used. First, we can use that. Why not just start the first activity? A service calls the login service, and this service invoking to ask for the admin rights, which was a dialog window. This dialog window was called each 30 seconds. In practice, this meant that the user will be prompted multiple times to tap and activate or decline on the request. Now, the able to decline the window was probably pushed of the user out of panic or annoyance. So here you can see how actually each call is this timers, which is then used, to schedule, let's say, one function calls for each second. And those in order to find out where we were responsible, we had to look into install the application on the request. We found out that the file was inside the system called EEE file, which is a SQL file. These files, unfortunately, not really reliable because it's locked and don't see the application actual permission to access this file. It was really good access to the access. The device with no option because of data loss as well as of course, this was another option that they considered. Overall, what was that? There were about 10,000 different activations response available. And every install code was 25 characters long. Every time a second block was triggered, and each object would go along with that, which is a normal behavior from a so we can calculate that it took us 48 hours to enforce the key, but we didn't calculate the time to generate numbers. So we just scratched this idea. Instead, we wrote the basic communication of the optimized with what we saw that you could actually communicate with the bot using different kinds of SMS messages, such as this one you see which told the bot to change the production number to which was used to by the bot faster. The command on SMS message and SMS forward to this number. Command off forward. There was one interesting function that is the one install function. Unfortunately, something that we couldn't use because we didn't have the number of perpetrators. We couldn't bypass this way as this is the option. So we looked at how the smartphone was actually infected, and we found out that infected computer used had a injected web page, which took the user to this page or something similar. Similar web pages illustration of this here. That's the Android operating system requires second secondary security levels. And in order to achieve this, the user has to be like online interacting certificate, and for that, in order to achieve that, then they have to input their telephone number and they receive receipts now, once this is filled out, another web page, this web page and activation code is shown. This is out, but normally this activation is used by the activation of the smartphone to generate the response code. So this is the second video of the activation code. If you can see, activation icon is on the user practicing install again the icon. We still see here the response for the generator using the activation code. And right away, as this happens, device administration function again just activate to get rid of it. Now this application managed to get the device administration right. And if you look it up, it's installed in the download section. You can't click on uninstall it because this application has the device administrator rights. Security settings, some device administrator menu. You'll see that the certificate admin has the device administrator rights. Okay, so what happened here was not the device was locked because the user attempted to get rid of the device administration. And with the acknowledgement pop-up here, the user couldn't react because the phone was already locked on the service that was running in the background. And here the user tries to enter some kind of code, try to unlock the phone. Here is not how you can perform the table one. Now the application behavior is we saw how the application okay. Our last question was, are there any more traps in the various what happens if eventually we remove the valve? Is there another trap we use to Now we ran studies in dynamics and this was combined on this application many times, almost completely reviewed and engineered our own updates. We found no substantial parts but there were unused parts and not the incremental parts which were used for design as well as for implementing all kinds of connection so we researched all of these options. What is the what we can do? So now how about rewriting the there was no activation code, we couldn't reach the initial activation device admins. Since now uninstall would be uninstall find the password way long and activating with a lot of the technical problems. The conclusion was we had to find the activation order was responsible to somehow generate the ownership. So our technical we decided to extract the class text file of this APK file and then use the text file for you to put the application in a raw function application and use Java virtual function to assume the source object here, which meant that we could manipulate all the functions, classes, objects, and everything that the application used. So we decided to make email records passwords. Did that through loading its own database adapter. The database adapter ran So how we handle the response was next. Well, all of all was that we didn't know how to access these sensitive images of the people data space. We had no access to the office. They were all the mentioned before. So what we did is here, we checked the version how to happen. You mentioned the expert still ran on this kind of what we needed to make use of this so those who don't know what the expert is, basically enables you to package an application with your own code or resources. Basically, in this case, we replace the original classes that expire with the resources. We use these classes that expire to construct we use the older to package the code that providing the code. The reason for that is because we can handle properly to effectively control files that we had two classes next class. Both the files will go inside the archive as an entry, and the operating system is capable of accessible. What happened here is that the operating system verified the authority classes that this was another one, and instead it installed the modern we use the MMC to see to execute all of code. So we do this here. We told the malware to leave the database and everything that is open the system and print it to the ATB on the how actually should look like. You can see there are two classes. Now, what has to be packaged on part of the use is special kind of ATD clause from the Microsoft. This replaces the already installed APK file. This also tells us that it is possible to use applications even though the phone is locked or it can be a CBC. So we back to the package and is that the equipment quality of the admin's telephone number, which will be even the last point contact, the last step, translating, and the office using the response using the framework that we call it. Now, there are a couple of things that we learned after this case. The first one was if possible, better analyze the behavior of the code before executing update. also things. So you have to prepare the analysis before and after each other from the target device. Then create a checklist of rule sets what to do or what not to do in the smartphones. Always assume the worst case or what could happen. Build an analysis to show you the dangerous try not to be easy. Try to try to be precise. And never do analysis now you can see device administration rights when they are given to the application. You can see the reset passwords which is the walk now option. Always make sure you make backups of this if there are anything that's you just reset the device. And in this case, the system is probably just Google. Thank you for the attention. Question. The source code of the Astros contract is that's a very good question. We have used your kinds of mail that are actually free. These are the actual, the Chinese phones that we are working on right now. There are actually malware types that attack specific kinds of smartphones. And online, to go within kinds of tools, wherever the smartphone goes online. And the application that is installed on malware is so perfect resistant that you have to really remove the whole image and load it in the smartphone if you can. Unfortunately, most of the Chinese smartphones have their own manufactured custom firmware, which drivers will first go over what you do. You just revert an engineer's image. You get rid of the parts that you don't use on the system application, which has many names. These system applications normally install adware in the background, even additional malware sometimes, and the answer to the changes. Yes, it will not do things. Was a newer version of this spider that one already had encryption of an SD card encrypted the contents of the SD card. Yeah, yeah. This was actually for like ransomware, but it's combined with the actual backwards applications. nur wenn ich, okay, ich kenne mich da nicht wirklich aus. Gut zu wissen. Verteiler als Favoriten. Die haben auch
Ja, es hilft aber nicht wirklich was.
Jetzt bist du der Chemist.
Ist das jetzt groß? Im Podcast?
Der andere Bildschirm ist
Ja.
ein Video.
Welcher ist der andere? Okay.
Ja, da.
Warte. Bis jetzt? Gut, damit können wir leben, oder? Das ihr seht halt dann da die Kommentare mit. Ist im Podcast jetzt der andere?
Das ist ja ganz klein natürlich. Das ist ja 4 Minuten. Ja, aber es passt.
Ja, das ist jetzt wurscht. Okay, then I'll just start. Some little technical problems to set up. Anyways, the talk is about ZigBee, the wireless communication protocol. And well, basically I'm standing for Tobias, who couldn't make it to the presentation. He did most of the research in the area of ZigBee, and well, I should be able to answer all the questions, give the presentation. If there's any detailed technical stuff to answer, we'll have to go back to the owner of the whole thing, so to say. Next. No. Yeah. So about me, I work as an auditor for Cognizant in Vienna. I'm also trying to get my drone to work with HD drone first-person view. That's one of my bigger projects, and I use Z-Wave for home automation at home. Z-Wave is the other communication protocol that can be used for home automation systems. What I'm going to talk about is a quick introduction about what is ZigBee. Most of people we've talked to, they don't know what ZigBee is if they don't work in home automation or are not pure technicians. They don't have a clue, so I'll just give a little bit of a background. I'll talk about the security measures that are implemented in the standard. So ZigBee certifies devices, there's a standard, and everybody applies the standard to their implementations. Application profiles, which are basically how to communicate between devices. And then I'll explain the implementation that we have looked at or researched and the security implications of, well, I would say failure to implement the standard properly. And I have a quick demonstration, which is only, or a couple of demo videos just to show you what this thing can do or what the tool works like. Just so you can see a little bit more than just text on a presentation. Quick summary is also on the agenda. What is it all about? ZigBee is based on the IEEE standard for wireless communication. It's low cost, low power. It's a two-way protocol. It's very reliable and it's wireless. So that's the quick and short summary for ZigBee. It's used in a lot of different areas. Especially in home automation, because that's where a lot of people use ZigBee. Also, when you just need a wireless serial channel, that's when a lot of do-it-yourself projects start. They use ZigBee chips or ZigBee hardware. Also, in the areas of healthcare, retail, telecom, whatever, there's a lot of areas using the same protocol. Why we thought ZigBee is important? Because we have, as you can see, a lot of ZigBee devices already. That was 2009, small numbers. That's the Gartner estimation. 2020, there will be 26 billion devices. That means a couple of devices, a few devices per household. All of them will be connected somehow. Most of them, I guess, will be connected wirelessly. They will be using the standard. So that's why at the moment, maybe you say, okay, only a few systems use it. In a couple of years, it will be spread all over. Why is security for wireless communication this area important? You might say home automation, we don't care. In reality, it's like basically home automation, also all related IoT is a very good source for personal information. So at the moment, there's a lot of people, the bad guys in the internet harvesting email addresses and account info and personal info as much as they get. Well, this is a new area. They can get all of your really personal data when you're at home, when you're not at home, what you're doing currently, how warm is the heating at home, whatever. So just a quick summary of ZigBee security measures. That's actually an extract from the standard. What are they doing to ensure communication is secure? Well, there is symmetric encryption, message authentication, integrity protection, replay protection, all of them implemented using industry standards. You might say, okay, 120-bit AIS is not the best or not the most secure, true, but we're talking about low cost, low power devices. They don't have the proper chips, they don't have the proper energy to do this all real time. So that's why in this case, it's not the highest strength that they're using. Anyways, this is meant to be secure. A couple of other facts. We have one security level per network. That means if you have a ZigBee network, all devices share the same security measures. If you disable encryption for one device, you disable it for the whole network. The security is based on the encryption keys. That's obvious. And there's two very important keys that are used in ZigBee networks. One is the network key, one is the link key. Network keys for the whole network, all devices communicate using the same key. Link keys between two devices. So standard, for example, says if you have a door lock, then you have to implement using link keys. So only those two devices can read the traffic. They understand each other, no other device can read or replay or whatever. Security architecture for the encryption really can be reduced to a couple of things: the network or transport or link key, initialization, installation, processing, storage. Meaning, if you have a device that has the network key on it, a light switch, for example, or any other device that is physically accessible, just go here, grab the light switch. Extract the storage media. In most cases will be EEPROM or something, little embedded storage, and extract the key from that if it's not stored securely. A lot of vendors claim they store it in encrypted form. It's not easy to retrieve. In reality, we've seen other guys talking about the same or topics about physically actually getting the keys off the devices. This talk is more about how to logically from the AI extract keys. Key exchange may be also interesting because, their symmetric encryption means both need the same key to talk to each other. How is this exchange? The standard says it can be pre-installed, there can be key transport or key establishment. Key transport basically means for example, you read a label on a device and put it in somewhere else that's out of band already. It could also be just derived from other keys. That's called key establishment. So that's the mechanisms that the standard says or explains, provides for key exchange of the symmetric key. In the ideal world, you don't exchange encryption keys without protecting them somehow. So application profiles, that's still part of the standard. Application profiles are basically describing how devices interact between each other. They explain how the message looks like and how processing of actions is done. It helps basically for an application. So if you implement something, the application profile for a light bulb, for example, would be light link. the application profile for motion sensor or alarm system or door lock, most of them use home automation profile, and those have different measures implemented. So we looked at application profiles in the standard to find out if there's anything curious or any security problems in there. And home automation profile, the first one, it has a default trust center link key. So the trust center link key is used to encrypt the key that is used for encryption. So that's basically the key encryption key. So that's ZigBee Align 09. That's because the standard was basically put in Storm 2009, and they decided that this would be a cool passphrase. And now this is not the worst, but we have some other attributes, for example, default link key join, and on the next slide, return to factory defaults. Basically, default link key join means this parameter is always set to 1, that they will also always fall back to this key here. And this key is public, is in the standard. So that means if you get a device to join, you will be able to sniff the encryption key. Yeah, that's also an interesting thing, return to factory default. Nobody really knows how to implement. That's also for the light link. There's a lot of things that the standard describes that nobody knows how to implement. A lot of vendors do it in a way that is insecure. So ZigBee Light Link is even worse because they say they don't encrypt. They use always the same key for encryption. It's the ZigBee Light Link key, and that's used for the profile. And this key is distributed only to certified manufacturers and is bound with a safekeeping contract, meaning that they have one key, that's the master key for all encryption they're using, and they trust that nobody will disclose it. And well, it's all over Twitter since months now, and that means, I mean, I've heard it in an earlier talk, security by obscurity. You just say, well, this key, nobody knows the key, and hope that nobody steals or discloses it. In this case, this happened. In this case, it happened, and using this key, master key, you can basically decrypt all the communication that's going on. Light link. There's also other interesting things, like default values for not checking frame counters as a security measure for replay attacks. Also, trust center link key is a standard one, and they also use for communication with the trust center. They always use the same key, so it's really, really bad. Insecure join, that's also an interesting one, because we saw in the standard that there's a method called insecure join, and we looked at some of the implementations and found out, and that's just skip a couple of slides here. Okay, I'll come back to that later. We found out that people don't know how to implement the insecure join, and they just do insecure, non-encrypted communication and get their answers from the system. So the official statement in ZigBee Alliance, they actually state that every system should be tested by security experts. I don't think any of the systems that we tested did really test their system before it went to production. That's also interesting, request key service. So you can request the key even using insecure methods, and people that implemented that, for example, the open source stack, they say, that's basically a quote, that's from the source code. They say, send current network key, not sure, send unsecured. What is the meaning of the command? Maybe ideas that we can accept previous network key or encrypted by it. And then somewhere you find in the code saying, initiate unsecure key transfer. Not sure if this is right, but I really have no ideas about request meaning or key. So that means that people implementing this thing, this standard, they sometimes really don't have a clue of what they should do. I mean, a method called insecure join and things for retrieving the network key. Why is this in the standard? And people implementing that in the open source stack or under in other hardware or something, they run into the same problems. Good. So a couple of devices we tested. Well, you can see pictures from different various vendors and different systems. We tested door locks, light bulbs, motion sensors, lighting solutions, Hall, hubs, which you call home automation hub, where you have one device that actually controls all that stuff. One thing on there, you can see SmartThings, Philips Hue, Osram, Lightify, all those systems. And what we found is that, first of all those devices, they use the default key. So they always fall back to the default key, and this is the link key that is known. So I've shown it before. It's basically ZigBee Alliance 09. So meaning that all devices during key exchange, that's basically a pairing, will use that key. And if you sniff it, you can extract the key. Link keys are not used at all. That means every device is using the network key. And if the network key is compromised, you can read all communication. Also, ZigBee security configuration is not something that the products allow, and key is not rotated at all. So basically, the whole security of key or of the encryption key that is used for symmetric encryption is flawed with all the products that we've seen. There was not one where we said, okay, this is actually implemented properly and they've done a good job. Also device reset, because you might think, okay, if it's compromised, somebody stole my key, reset the device and that's all fine. Most of the times it doesn't work. You can't, some of the devices you can't reset, you can't get rid of that. That means attacker owns your device and you can't do nothing about it. Yeah, also there's other security measures that are implemented as part of the standard. One is your home hub just transmit with low power, and that basically prevents you from stealing your neighbor's light bulbs. So these guys think that nobody else is using other equipment, software-defined radios or anything else. Everybody must use these hubs, but in reality, for example, we were able to use just a software-defined radio, increase transmit power, then you can reset devices. I mean, you can steal your neighbor's lights, for example. Okay, we have video demos here, so I'll show and explain some of the things we tested and we did. But first, a couple of words about a tool called ZigBee. Well, that's basically what we used to automate key extraction, to automate replay attacks, to do a couple of things to test basically ZigBee-powered devices. The audience is testers and developers. So you could, if you built your own system, you could test it using the tool. And it uses it's also based on tools that are on the market already that other people developed. So ZigBee Radio, Miracoli, Kilobee, that's all things that are out there for years or two, and people have used the same set of tools. The difference here is that we implement a lot of more stuff. We have support for encrypted communication. All new devices use encrypted communication. In the years where they developed the original tools, that was not supported. It supports common injection. It scans for weak key transport, allows you to reset devices to factory, join to networks, all kinds of stuff. The two hardware items you see on the right side, it's Raspberry, that's a small Raspberry Pi plus extra module for ZigBee. And what we also use is a USRP, that's a software-defined radio. I don't know if you've heard of software-defined radios. Basically, you can sniff any kind of radio communication and demodulate and decode that. So that's what is used for analyzing radio protocols, and we use those a lot for looking at that stuff. Why are we using both devices? The answer is, one is for analysis, the software-defined radio, but it's slow compared to the hardware-implemented Raspberry. The Raspberry is much faster, and we use the Raspberry to actually help us to respond to devices because the software-defined radio was too slow. You can see there's two ways of how commands are sent, direct, indirect, because there's a lot of battery-powered devices, like the door lock we tested was battery-powered, and the battery-powered device wakes up every 120 seconds and asks for a command. If you're not quick enough to tell the device that you have a command ready, then it will just switch off and wait another 120 seconds. That's why we have had to use two devices. In future, we might port everything over to Raspberry, to the Raspberry one, but at the moment we're using both. Okay, just some background about the key sniffing we're doing. What we'll do is, as the fallback key, we know the fallback key. We just need to sniff the radio communication between the two devices, and then we can use the fallback key to decrypt the encryption key. meaning we have the encryption key for symmetric encryption then, and then we can do whatever we want. We have basically, we can read the plain text of the communication, we can insert whatever we want. Okay, that's the quick video for the key extraction. Before I start this is basically one laptop that has GNU Radio on. GNU Radio was used for analyzing the radio protocol. Then there's a MacBook, and that has only a screen basically of the application. That's the iPhone application that is very small, so I hope you can see parts of it. The most important thing about this is that there is some kind of icon on here that says door locked or door unlocked. Also, there's the pairing screen on there, and that's the door lock we used for testing. The door lock is basically a very popular brand in the US. One of the, in Europe, it's not very famous at the moment because, well, basically nobody's using these types of door locks in Europe at the moment. Just changing those. You can order one of those locks still from Amazon or something. It's $300, very, very expensive. So should be quite secure, which it is not anyways. So I'll just play that. You can see that we have put the iPhone app now to pairing mode, meaning the hub, the white hub here, the SmartThings hub, actually is now looking for devices, and Tobias actually sitting on the table here. He will be, oh, not that good, sorry. He will be just pressing the lock buttons to enable the pairing process on the lock. And he's quite used to typing on the lock. You can see that he has done it a couple of times. And on the left side, you can see the analyzer scripts. They just run through analyze traffic here. On the right side, this says now the lock is paired. And on the left side, you should be able to see the network key that was extracted. And that now, the network key now allows us to do whatever we want with the whole network, basically. Sorry for the quality of the video here. Might bring the devices and show it in live next time. Back to presentation mode. Okay, so we actually talked to SmartThings and other vendors about this. We said, well, you can sniff the keys while you're pairing devices, and they said, yeah, that's not an issue because the time frame for sniffing that key is very limited. Yeah, so the time frame is limited. You need close proximity to sniff a key. Key extraction only works to pairing. So what would a normal attacker do now? Well, he actually forces the end user to repair devices by just jamming the signal. That's Mr. Bean saying, well, we have a device that lost a connection. What do? We repair it. Because that's what happens. Users at home would normally repair the devices if they're broken. So, okay, I have something about radio jamming. I'm not sure if anybody wants to see this. This is basically a video that shows how a radio jamming would disable the radio channels and would disable the devices. We have a motion sensor down here with a light bulb that's coupled to the motion sensor. So normal behavior would be, well, motion is detected, light goes on. We have, when we jam with GNU Radio, this frequency band, we have no lights on, and the funny thing about it is that the motion sensor will not send any signal, will not send any command after the radio link is established again. So it somehow forgets that it was not transmitting properly. Normally, what we would have for this, that devices that cannot, because it's bidirectional, right? You always get acknowledged for a command. We would have thought that devices would actually say, yeah, I sent this, I didn't get an acknowledge message, so I'll send it again. But motion sensors, they don't. Those motion sensors are used in alarm systems. So if you want to go into the neighbor's house, you just jam the radio signal. Nobody will notice, even if you leave and stop jamming the system. The command injection is okay. We already had the network key extracted. We have the standard, and the standard explains the protocol that we need to use, and we have all the counters, because the tool knows the count, actually stores the counters. And that means we can just start sending commands from our own toolkit to the door lock. We do it now using this tool on the left side, and you will see, well, first by the iPhone, sorry, so that you can see that's unlocked. And if you press this again, it will show locked, and the door will lock. And in the next step, we'll show how to send it using our own application that has the key extracted. So basically looks the same. And funny here is that basically the hub should be able to intercept and also read that and say the door is now opened, even if somebody else opened it, but still shows not opened, which we thought was also basically is a security flaw that, yeah, I don't know, still. So that means you can sniff the key, you can open whatever or change whatever you want. So the next slide, I just had an example of the same lock and how easy it can be picked. I'm going to show this because everybody would say, yeah, I know there's ways of attacking a lock, but you can also lock pick it. So we tried that, and it's quite simple to just rake the lock open. And in this way, it's really really easy. So that was not a one time. I opened and closed like this all the time. So that's a $300 lock, but you can still change the lock itself. So they allow you actually exchanging the lock. You can upgrade your $300 lock with another $100 lock. Okay. Okay, device hijacking is also quite interesting because you can, I told you before that you can basically reset to factory a light bulb or something else and then just join it to your own network. That works really easy. You just reset it to factory, and I have a video showing it using the default software. So that's not like something that we coded. It's just the default software that is used here. It runs on the Raspberry and it resets the light bulb. And in this case, we're not using any antenna. So that means we really need to put it next to the light. But you could use different antennas. You could use different transmitters to reset to factory defaults and then just steal the lights of your neighbor. In this case, it's a light link protocol. So you're just seeing light bulbs, but still fun. Okay, what he actually presses the reset button. First, he pressed the identify button. And after the reset, you can see that it's not possible to use the normal remote control anymore because it's basically reset to default. We joined it to our own network, so the original remote doesn't work anymore. And he should be able to switch it on and off using his own. I mean, he's basically able to switch it on and off using the default Raspberry application. So you don't need anything. You don't need a key or anything. It's really easy. Why the vendors implemented that is basically they thought that they need to make it as usable as possible. You don't want to put in your light bulb and then maybe, I don't know, go up again, read the label. You need to reset it easily. And this is full like usability, and they didn't think a lot about security in this case. So quick summary. Yeah, the security measures provided by the standard are basically good. Problem is that we have interoperability, meaning devices need to stay there for 10 years. The old device needs to work with the newer and vice versa. Also, most of the vendors implement the minimum to be compliant, meaning that they get certified. They just implement function. They don't implement the security features properly, and they get certified then. And yeah, same usability over as security. I already said that. So you could see the door in front of that as the standard itself, saying, oh, we're very secure. We have those key encryption keys that are only transmitted out of band, and we're using, well, best practice, industry best practice encryption and all that measures. So it's all fine, but still, well, vendors created their own, well, let's say, ways to circumvent that. Yeah, and the last few words, proper implementation of security measures is very important. Also, is compliance on the one side. ZigBee compliance doesn't mean the devices are secure. We should learn from things like, I mean, that happened a lot of time. People say security by obscurity is not the right thing to do. It's still done. These are current standards. Even the newest standards, they still use keys that they think nobody will be able to have outside the vendors committee. And also, because we are talking about TCP/IP here most of the time, there's also work besides TCP/IP, and will get very, very interesting in the next few months and years, because a lot of things will be sent over different channels than TCP/IP networks. Okay, well, that's it. Thanks. And if you have questions, I would be willing to answer them now. Gut, danke.
Well, was the link, the light link, the only link you analyzed, or was it the other?
It's two profiles that we looked at in more detail: home automation profile and light link profile. There's also link profiles for different types of systems. For example, in healthcare, they would use a different type of profile. And the ones we looked at specifically is well, light link and home automation. We also analyzed a few others, but they were not as interesting as these. And these are the most commonly used at the moment, because all of the vendors, like I said, I actually told you about a few, implement these profiles.
Question about the standardization.
Yeah.
Does the IEEE, I mean, they do have some kind of a security standard for ZigBee in place, or do they?
Well, IEEE has a standard for communication that defines the base layer, basically. For everything that's above is basically, you could say, the ZigBee layer, and application profiles on top. This is a little bit more complicated anyways. The whole thing has security measures en masse. I mean, there's enough things you can do. And they explain it in the standard exactly what a vendor would have to implement to do it properly. There is a few methods, I agree, like the insecure network joiner, all those, that you could say, okay, those shouldn't be there, but vendors are still not implementing the minimum security measures that are already provided with the standard. So I wouldn't say it's a failure in the standard or a big problem in the standard. Vendors could still make it secure.
Are there actually any manufacturers who actually know how to implement security for ZigBee? Have you managed to encounter with anything?
Well, there's an alliance that's called, it's basically a ZigBee alliance, and a lot of vendors are in the ZigBee alliance. They're part of that. And they are working on making things more secure. But there's always, in most companies at the moment, also especially in home automation market, it's about market share and getting more, customers, consumers, and basically making features rather than security. That's their main goal at the moment. So you can't really argue with them to tell them, yeah, that's not secure enough, you could make it better. They will say, yes, maybe, but we don't have the time and money for it. We don't care. It will take some time, like in the beginning of Wi-Fi, for people to realize it's all insecure, we can't use it. And then maybe vendors will start implementing stuff, if you don't buy those things anymore. Yeah.
When probably when big scandals break in the news, such as the automobile industry nowadays.
Things like that help a little.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure because people are still, did you see the Chrysler stocks go down? Maybe a little, but then up again. So there's no real impact, I would say. Even these big scandals, people don't really care. They just say, well, that's but it happens to everybody, and they think that it's normal, and that breaches are normal, and that insecurity is normal. People get used to that kind of thing. So that's why I think at the moment, it's two sides. I hope that consumers or the end customers will help raising security by forcing the vendors. On the other side, I don't have, after what I've seen in the past with devices being broken like Netgear and D-Link all the time, like they infect the routers all the time, and they still buy the stuff. Yeah. So
the main problem, I think,
there's still hope.
The seller, because the electric company doesn't really take care of security.
Yes, I agree. So that's also especially in building automation. Home automation is where people buy their stuff themselves, mostly. Yeah. Only a few that have big houses and no knowledge, they want it implemented, they go to install it, does the whole thing. Building automation is also using similar protocols, but basically the guy that comes and installs the system, he doesn't really care about it. He is happy if it runs stable. That's all he wants. And they are using the same systems for 10 years and more, so they won't switch that easily to something that is new and secure. So correct, yes. Any more? Yeah, no, it's a little depressing when you look at those things, but on the other side, we still have like fun playing around with it. So, I mean, there would be no job in the industry for us if it wasn't that way. So good for us.
They create jobs.
They create jobs, yes. You should write thank you letters to them. Okay, good. You're welcome. Vielen Dank.